it's dangerous to have unsatisfied customers in this modern, competitive, and fast evolving age, right? So there's a need for new and modern architectures to eliminate factors causing dissatisfaction and improve the business and technical logic in commerce. So you need to continue evaluating your business and look for more ways of improving your customer experience and improving everything, right?
That's
So
true.
that's pretty much it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into the fifth episode of Effective Product Development series, where together with Chris, we help digital makers make better informed technological decisions. In today's episode, we will talk a bit more about e-commerce and specifically about headless e-commerce. We will also go deeper into some modern e-commerce problems or challenges, and we will try to have a look on how to face them. But before we get any further with the technology, let me introduce our today's guest, Bolaji Ayodeji. He's a developer's advocate in Commerce Layer. This is a platform for global brands providing e-commerce features, but I'm not going to say much more about it. I will let Bolaji introduce himself a bit more, his company and his role. So welcome, Bolaji. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, thank you so much. It's nice for me to be here today also. Hello, everyone. My name is Bolaji Ayodeji. I'm a software engineer, content creator, and community engineer. I currently work at a company called Commerce Layer as a developer advocate. And what I do is I stand as a mediator between developers using our products and try to help them be successful with the products and their craft generally. Alongside my work at Commerce Layer, I'm passionate about Jamstack, headless commerce, documentation, communities, and open source. And on the side, I manage a community called Open Source Community Africa in Nigeria, which is a community for open source enthusiasts and experts in Africa. And I think that's pretty much it.
That's already a lot. I would like to bring a bit more context here in the conversation because we would like to focus on the biggest challenges of modern e-commerce world and how to face them with the latest technology. And because before we go to the headless e-commerce itself, because it's quite hot subject lately, I would like to start from some basics and try to answer the question where the need for changes in commerce came from. Like, because as a marketing person, I really enjoy all this business and customer centric related stuff. And e-commerce, I think one of the biggest challenges for e-commerce is to please the customer online. And I remember I've been watching your presentation on StrapiConf, where you mentioned all the major traditional commerce challenges. You also called them the major factors that affect the success of commerce business. And can we get a bit deeper into that? Can we try to point them out maybe?
Yeah, sure. I think the background context of it all is that the best projects are built on two things, creativity and solid foundations. And where the problem lies is that these two ingredients kind of have conflicting requirements sometimes. For you to build a creative project, it requires you to focus on your user experience, flexibility. You want to be creative and all that. And for you to have a solid foundation, you want to focus on security, scalability, and all that. But then these two layers kind of have conflicting priorities because for you to focus on user experience and some other customer related features, it's kind of hard for you to balance both of them. And this is where the current e-commerce is right now. And why this is a problem is because there is an increased number of consumers using e-commerce today. We're in the 21st century, and we both know with the pandemic, there are more people shopping online than they used to do in years before now. And while we have more consumers shopping online, we also have more consumers shopping on several more platforms, right? And consumers are also demanding for a faster experience. They are demanding for a better experience. And that's it on the consumer's side. And on the business side, there is increase in technology and there is also increase in competition. So you're trying to balance and scale up to meet the demands of your consumers. And you're also trying to balance and scale up to the competitions and the rising technologies. So it's becoming harder day by day for businesses to try to balance and meet up to these demands. And this is why we need to change. We need a new technology that can help us achieve this. So that's pretty much the context.
What I feel and see also lately, because also one of the let's say big brother of all this technology is Google, and Google also has its own demands related to performance and quality as well, user experience and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I also consider this to be one of the main factors that people will kind of push to new technology. I think Google also wants that. I suppose modern technology enable Google to work more efficiently. So they will definitely uh, try to push online business to the modern technology way of doing stuff.
Companies want to make revenue, right? And all we've been saying so far is the only way you make more revenue is for you to satisfy your customers, basically, which brings us down to trying to improve the entire platform, because that's all your business is all about. You want to satisfy your consumers.
Can you tell something about the pain points of modern e-commerce development?
Yeah, sure. I think Mario's already mentioned one of it, which is Google. And we have the Google Core Web Vitals, which is more like a standard in terms of how websites on the internet would probably rank on Google, what Google expects in terms of performance and some kind of metrics, right? And all these metrics, there's a research behind it that studied and show how when you measure those kind of metrics, it allows you to know how performant your business is and how satisfactory it is for your consumers. So meeting up with these metrics is kind of hard with the traditional way, which is currently how most businesses are operating currently. And some of the kind of structure that most traditional e-commerce businesses use is something called the monolithic architecture, which is an architecture where you have, all components bundled into one single application, the presentation layer, the business logic, the database, content management systems, and everything in one system, right? And having all this affects a lot of things. It affects the developer experience. It affects flexibility. It affects the cost of the project. It affects security because it becomes harder for you to make changes in the application. It becomes harder for you to adapt to new changes, right? So when you get this project to the end of the line and you have it out live, it wouldn't meet up with the performance metrics that's required for you to pass, those tests. And eventually it's not going to satisfy your users. So it becomes hard for you to meet up with the Google Core Web Vitals. And we also know that for you to rank well in Google, performance and security happen to be one of the core metrics also. So we see here that performance pretty much covers everything. And this is one of the pain points that modern commerce experience today. And I think the last one would probably be customer experience and page speed, which kind of still results in performance, right? So you want to ensure that your consumers have the best experience as much as they demand. And this means covering several edge cases. Like Chris was trying to mention about having people from different countries, and each of them have different demands. My demand from Nigeria will be different from yours in the UK. And you have to really be ready to satisfy me and all your users, right? And this calls for more creativity in terms of the consumer experience, in terms of the page speed, and all this satisfaction kind of boils down to the engineering decisions you make, because you really cannot just, create satisfaction from nothing. You have to do the technical work that would result in that satisfaction. So all these are kind of the pain points that modern commerce experience today, and there is a need for a solution.
So I think that's a really perfect moment to actually go to smoothly to headless e-commerce. If you could explain headless e-commerce approach a bit more, like how it differentiate from the traditional approach.
Yeah, sure. And so, like we've been saying so far, there is a flaw in the current architecture, and we need a new technology. And the headless commerce architecture is kind of the new way of designing architectures in e-commerce, whereby you separate the components and the logic behind the entire systems. So in summary, you have your presentation layer independent from the business logic. And when it comes to the headless commerce architecture, you just have the front end layer and APIs. The APIs can mean anything. It can serve several things, right? And that's how flexible it gets, right? So when you separate the front end and the back end logic, you are able to decouple the components into independent modules. And it allows you for more flexibility, better performance, and also efficient development, because now it becomes easier for your team to work on a particular project. Your front-end engineering team can work on the user experience and try to be creative as much as they want. Your business logic engineers can, try to work on your business requirements and build something that works for your platform. And your content managers can also work on your content, because this is one thing businesses also miss out, because they feel content is probably just not so important. It's just text, right? And it's really important because we're talking about customer experience and satisfying demands. I mean, your content is pretty much the first entry point your consumers get to your platform. So you need to optimize that to also serve them, right? And the headless architecture allows you to do this smoothly. So now you can focus on your front end by using maybe static site generators like Next.js and Gatsby, and try to build the front end layer, right? And you can leverage on headless commerce platforms to handle the transactional functionalities of your e-commerce business. And then you can also utilize headless content management systems to manage your content. And the list goes on, because the idea is you're now able to compose your stack using a lot of tools, technologies, and then build them up into one application that would meet up with the demands of modern e-commerce. So that's pretty much the idea behind it.
Yeah, I like a lot that you can basically use the best tools for build the commerce. So for
Yeah,
example, you can
yeah,
use best checkout experience that you can have. You can use
yeah,
best CMS for managing content. So all
exactly.
marketers and counter marketers are happy. As you mentioned, different teams can work at the same time on the platform, and also in the bigger e-commerce, different vendors. So, for example,
Yeah,
few agencies can work at the same time on the platform. Yeah, so
yeah.
that's very cool about headless e-commerce. But do you see any cons of using headless e-commerce, and some downsides, maybe when it's not worth to use headless e-commerce for the projects?
Yeah, sure. Before I talk about the downside, I think I would like to add that one other brilliant, flexibility that Headless Commerce gives you is the ability to serve your consumers on several marketplaces, several sales channels. We talk about how consumers are shopping on different devices on several mediums, right? And the architecture where you have your business logic separated from the front end layer allows you to build one entire business logic for your entire e-commerce platform and serve that on several presentation layers on the web, which happens to be maybe the popular entry point for consumers, on your mobile phones, on smartwatches, IoT, and some other cool entry points, marketplaces that people use currently. So that's also one of the great benefits that traditional e-commerce doesn't give you, right? So yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. And then about the downsides of using headless commerce. So I think the first downside of using headless commerce happens when you don't actually use headless commerce. So you're losing, first of all, if you're not losing using headless commerce. And the best way for us to see it here is determining if headless commerce is the right thing for you. Because despite all the mouth-watering benefits, it's not the right solution for everyone, right? So if you're a small business with small requirements, a single marketplace, just a few engineering resources, with a desire to just maybe start selling quickly, right? It's not the best thing for you, right? But then if you're a growing brand that wants to expand your brand or your business internationally, you want to take control over your content and your user experience, then it's probably the best fit for you. And why this is because the headless commerce architecture kind of builds the mindset where you have to build everything yourself, as compared to the traditional way where you pretty much have templates, boilerplates and stuff like that that just um, bootstraps your entire project, right? So for a small business that just wants to make sales, right, you really don't even know if you're satisfying your customers yet or not. You really don't have so much data or and all that to determine if you want to leverage the headless commerce architecture. But then when you are a fast growing brand, you have a lot of consumers and you're trying to meet up with the demands coming from those consumers. It's now easier for you to work with that data and then try to leverage the headless commerce architecture, right? So the first downside here, or rather the second downside, is not being able to decide if it's the best fit for you, right? So, and a lot of things go into determining the best fit in terms of headless commerce. I think we will share more about that soon, especially when you're trying to determine the best, do I use the word technologies, right? We'll probably talk more about that, but then this is like the idea behind the downsides.
Yeah, I agree in 100%. I think sometimes you don't need a very fast shop. You don't need to invest in that.
Yeah,
For example, maybe you are just a local shop and you're selling just for your city, so the customers won't compare your shop with 100,000 other vendors, but they just want to have this favorite T-shirt from the favorite shop on the corner. So maybe it's not always needed to have it. Maybe sometimes it's good enough to just install to go to Shopify.com and just register and have the shop ready without any development, because I guess in the headless world every time you need a developer to work on the e-commerce platform and develop it, right, and add new features or integrate it.
yeah, that's the idea. Wanting to leverage on the headless commerce architecture costs something, right? And like I mentioned earlier, it starts from the mindset of you have to build this yourself, because you just identified a big loophole in your business and you're trying to improve it so you can make more revenue and satisfy your consumers and make more revenue, right? So there is a lot in terms of the development that you need to do. There is a lot of analysis you need to do to decide on the best technologies to use, right? So that's pretty much the downside if you're not sure if it's the best fit for you.
Right now, I think it's also a good moment because we have mentioned about some smaller shops that maybe don't want to really use headless e-commerce or don't really need to use headless e-commerce. But, we have been watching Commerce Layer as well.
The idea behind Commerce Layer is it was built with a vision to solve the problem that traditional e-commerce platform experience, right? So as an API first platform, Commerce Layer supports headless commerce natively. And we provide you with several commerce APIs that you can use to manage the transactional functionalities of your platform, ranging from inventory management, order management, shopping carts, payments, prices, checkouts, and some other cool stuff that exists in e-commerce. So the idea is you can integrate your e-commerce platforms with Commerce Layer and build a single backend that would serve all your presentation layers. So if that makes any sense. And alongside the commerce APIs you get, we provide you with an order management system where you can manage your orders, manage your returns, and some other cool stuff. So commerce layer sits between, the transactional functionalities involved in commerce. So while you're leveraging on the front end experiences, you're trying to build the best experience, right? That's one aspect of headless commerce. You're trying to build the business logic also. And then commerce layer comes in and then handles all the transactional functionalities. So then you just have to plug in APIs into your architecture.
Right. If I think of e-commerce managers, for example, that would like to benefit somehow from commerce layer, like what I, as a e-commerce manager, what can I expect from commerce layer? Like which kind of problem you can take out from my agenda?
So I would say there are like three do I call them umbrellas in which Commerce Layer would provide something for you. Headless, composable, and global. And headless, we've already been talking about it, right? Commerce Layer gives you the flexibility to implement the headless approach to building e-commerce platforms, right? So you are able to handle your transactional functionalities and business logic on one end and have your presentation layer on another end and your content on another end. So there's flexibility in the development aspects of your platform. And in terms of composable, Commerce Layer gives you more flexibility to leverage on composable commerce. And what this means is you're able to pick from a collection of tools based on your business requirements. And then, when you pick all of them, you build them into what you want. So what I mean is you have a business requirement, you want to build a platform that satisfies XYZ, right? There are several headless tools out there ranging from content management systems to static site generators to order management systems and several core systems that are required to build the large e-commerce platform you want to build, right? So Commerce Layer gives you that flexibility to leverage other platforms, other tools, and compose them together. And the keyword here is based on your business requirements. So it's not something that it's set in stone. Whatever requirements you have the ability to just choose and build what works for you. And the last thing is global, right? So Commerce Layer helps you to sell to multiple countries without any form of data duplication. I think Chris started mentioning about payments and some other stuff that exist in terms of e-commerce, right? Because you would probably have marketplaces or let's say markets in several countries, right? And that's why for a small business, it's actually not the right decision for you to come to headless commerce because you probably don't have multiple markets that you are leveraging on. So it's more like just jumping into something and then losing some of the benefits, right? So with Commerce Layer, you are able to build your entire business logic on one end, and you can use that same data across several marketplaces. You don't have to duplicate every single content or do I call them data for each of those marketplaces, right? So there's much more flexibility that comes in terms of selling internationally, in terms of sorry, in terms of payments, in terms of content, in terms of the e-commerce functionalities, right? So these are kind of the three umbrellas in which Commerce Layer provides services to you as an e-commerce business.
Yeah, sounds very good. And as I noticed from your website, you also can create subscription-based business using Commerce Layer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very cool feature.
Yeah.
And yeah, can you tell me something about more QR code catalogs that you can build using Commerce Layer? I think this is a pretty interesting feature.
Yeah. So the idea is there is no end to what you can do with Commerce Layer. It's like we just give you a big blank board and tell you to, draw the amazing art you want to draw. So the fact that it's an API first platform and will provide you with several APIs for all the core features you need for your e-commerce business. I pretty much cannot list all of them right now. So with those APIs, you can now build whatever you want to build for any presentation layer. And the QR codes and catalogs just become one end to it, right? So leveraging the kind of technology you're comfortable with, you can use our APIs to, build something with QR codes, whereby as a consumer, I can just scan a QR code and have access to a product, and then I can make payments with the QR code. There's fun stuff you can do with that. And likewise, like I mentioned with IoT, with smartwatches and some other cool stuff. So that's just the idea. We give you the APIs and then you can do all the cool stuff you want to do with it.
Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of cool features, and we can build a lot of nice platforms thanks to Commerce Layer. But do you have an ideal client for this kind of projects? I mean, some specific industry that Commerce Layer serves mainly, or this is a bit random and it just the matter if a developer chooses this tool and implement it into the e-commerce? platform?
Okay, so there is no specific business case for Commerce Layer, right? Any kind of industry can fit into Commerce Layer. Fashion, education, entertainment, name it. So long you want to sell online, that's pretty much it. You want to sell something, you have something to sell, either physically or virtually. It can be digital products. Then Commerce Layer is the right fit for you.
So I noticed that on the Commerce Layer website, there's a lot of technical benefits of using that. So I assume
Yeah.
you're attracting developers that wants to build e-commerce platforms for their clients or for their bosses. And developer is checking your website. Developer is saying, oh, this is a nice API. I have SDK for my favorite language. The communication is easy. The documentation is accurate. So yeah, I'm going to choose Commerce Layer and suggest for the for my boss to implement it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the idea behind it. And sometimes it might not be actual developers that would even find this out. It might be, business-minded folks who are concerned about your revenue, or it might be engineering managers, someone that just wants to look for a technology that would kind of improve your current architecture. But then the idea is you come, you look at the features, and then you're satisfied that this works, and then you try to convince those at the upper hand of your business to leverage the technology.
Yeah. Okay. And what developers like in Commerce Layer? Is there something specific that it's worth to mention?
So the first thing there would be the flexibility that comes with using Commerce Layer. I think I've used that word several times already today, right? So the idea of building handling the entire transactional logic behind your e-commerce business, and then being able to serve that across several presentation layers is really cool, right? So I can have my e-commerce platform, and Commerce Layer is handling the prices, handling customers, the products, line items, checkouts, and cool stuff like that. And I can have that served on a website, a mobile app, and maybe a smart shop on smartwatches, right? So it's really cool how you're able to do all that with one platform. And the other cool feature is the idea of selling internationally. So Commerce Layer by default allows merchants to scale their businesses to several marketplaces. And this is at less cost, and it's very easy, and you don't have to do any form of data duplication, right? So the idea behind selling internationally and flexibility happens to be one of the key stuffs that developers love about Commerce Layer.
Let's imagine a company. Let's say I would like to migrate to Jamstack. Let's say I have some platform, but I'm not really happy with my results. I can feel, a breath of Google, Core Web Vitals, and stuff like that. And I would really like to go Jamstack. Is there anything that me as a business owner, for example, that I should be aware of?
So the headless commerce approach uses a kind of top-down approach, right? So I think by now we already understand the pain points from traditional e-commerce and why we want to leverage on the headless commerce approach with Jamstack, right? So the idea is for you to follow the top-down approach. Start from the customer experience, because the flexibility that headless commerce gives you is that all these components are all independent, right? So you can start from the customer experience, pick the right framework that works best with your engineering team, pick the right CMS that works best with your content team, focus on building the customer experience that satisfies your consumers. And this can start from you analyzing what kind of data you have currently in terms of your consumers. What are the pain points? What do they need? Where are you lagging? What do they want? And then identifying those pain points, you can then design an experience that satisfies those needs, right? And then you go ahead and implement that design in terms of building the perfect customer experience that works for you, right? And then next, then you can now focus on the commerce part of it, which is the transactions and everything. So the idea or something you should prepare your mind for as a merchant when trying to leverage on headless commerce and Jamstack is that you're going to write code for pretty much everything, right? So set that mindset that, okay, I am going to build this stuff, and that's pretty much how you get started. And then you use the top-down approach to start from the customer experience and build it down.
Yeah, I actually really like this approach, because everything starts from the user pretty much.
Yes, this is a very nice quote. This kind of approach, and I think when you're migrating to headless e-commerce, you might notice that maybe your current e-commerce platform can work as headless e-commerce. So maybe you can start just with the updating user interface, as you mentioned, and you can stay for a second with your traditional e-commerce, for example, Magento or Shopware or something like that, and you can use their API to build a great user interface.
So it's a process, right? You don't just maybe jump into it all, because you want to understand that you are doing the right thing. So take it slowly and then work your way down through.
Yeah. So that's actually my next question. Like, what kind of time frame should I prepare for such migration? Because we have those kind of questions from clients, like, okay, how long is it going to take,
So it pretty much varies depending on the kind of projects you're working on, right? And how fast it will go depend on how soon you are able to assess and decide on the technologies you want to use, which kind of is one of the biggest decisions you have to make in migrating, right? You need to ensure that you choose the best technologies, because there are a lot out there, right? So realistically, it will take probably around 3 to 4 months for you to migrate from Jamstack to the headless commerce. And we know this because at Commerce Layer we've worked with several brands, right? And we understand how much time it takes for you to decide on those technologies. And it will pretty much take you less time if you're reaching out to us, for an example, because now we are experts in the field and we've worked with several brands before now. So we pretty much understand what your business or your project needs to succeed. So if you reach out to us, request a demo, we can tell you what are the best parts for you to follow in picking those tools, and then you can go ahead and start development, right? And then if you're able to do that yourself also, it's cool, because you need to be sure that you make the best decision at the starting point, and that's what makes it faster.
Yeah, I think also important decision to make is the data migration. For example, you have your customer data, some sensitive informations maybe, and you need to decide you want to migrate the orders and in which format the orders are, and is possible to do or not. And is Commerce Layer allowing to easily import data from popular e-commerce platforms?
So we pretty much support importing those kind of data into Commerce Layer, right? So it becomes maybe, let me say, much more easier than it would be for you to bring in your data from existing platforms and then try to set them up, right? So if it's harder if you're probably a large-scale e-commerce business with like a lot of data, right? And if it's pretty much medium, it's going to vary based on the size of whatever you're trying to migrate.
One of the quite obvious questions, another one from clients, they would like to definitely know what kind of costs they can expect, but I'm not actually, because we are in the different places in the world, so a website done in UK will probably cost differently than website done in Eastern Europe and in India and so on. So but as a business owner, for example, I would like to know maybe not the cost, but the things that I will need to pay for, because as we mentioned at the beginning, you still need a developer to do stuff out there. You still need some skilled people, like as a business owner that never done any coding before, you might have a huge problem to get there, to start and so on. So in a way, I would like to have an approximate idea of things that I would need to pay for.
Yeah. So I think we'll start with the point that this architecture is tailored for enterprises. We've said this several times, right? So it's, if you're a small business, then this is not the right thing for you to do. You need to be sure that you're doing the right thing, right? And the idea is there's a native market cost in terms of the transactional aspect of using headless commerce platforms. For an example, Commerce Layer keeps the cost of infrastructure constant if you sell in multiple countries, right? So you don't have to pay for several apps, integrations, and stuff like that. It's just, a payment that is based on your orders, right? It's based on what you're selling, right? So that's pretty much the idea. So aside from paying for, let's say, a platform like Commerce Layer that handles all your transactional functionalities, you would also want to consider the cost of a content management system. There are several out there, right, to manage your content. And you would also want to leverage something like a CDN that would help you to, while you're using static site generators, cache those pages and deploy them on CDNs, which makes things faster and increase your performance. So you would also want to consider that. And alongside other tools and stacks that you would want to use, you might probably want to use an image service to optimize your images like Cloudinary and some other cool stuff, right? So these are pretty much the ideas or the sections that you would want to focus on before we now go to the actual building of the customer experience, which you can decide to use a digital agency like PagePro, or you can decide to use hire developers that would work and build this stuff for you. So it's pretty much on the customer experience aspect, designing and front-end development, the commerce aspect, headless commerce like Commerce Layer, and some other integrations, tools, and stacks that you would need to use.
Yeah, and I think if we are speaking about costs, it's of course cost of implementing new platform, but we need to remember about cost of maintaining existing platform. And for example, maybe you can have your old big e-commerce website that hosting costs a lot of money, and there is a place to improve it. Maybe your current e-commerce platform has outdated tech stack, and time to implement new features, it's killing your business. So you need to check the cost on the implementation of the new website, and also cost of staying with the old website. And also maybe it's not just about the cost, but I think it's easier to find developer and recruit developer that will be working on fresh technology stack, because developer experience also is an important factor if you're having an in-house team to develop new features into your e-commerce website. So I think headless and the Jamstack approach has great developers experience, right?
Yeah, I agree with you 100.
And I think then quite natural next move would be to trying to choose the best tech stack for my web shop, let's say. Are there any e-commerce platforms that you could recommend? Like, because obviously there are popular ones, but maybe we could try to match the e-commerce platform to a specific kind of a business. Like, what would you recommend?
Okay, and so my recommendation would be based on my own preference and based on my own business requirements, right? So the first thing to note is you need to find what works for your own requirements, right? Understand what you have currently, like Chris has mentioned. You would not have a JavaScript ecosystem and then try to adopt something in the Python ecosystem. It's kind of a new space for you. So you need to stay within where you are, or if possible, it's possible that where you are is currently very bad and you want to maybe take a leap of faith. That's also fine. But then the idea is for you to be sure that you're picking something that works best with your current stack and your current engineering resources, like Chris mentioned, with having developers working on a fresh project, right? So first of all, I think when it comes to static site generators in terms of building Jamstack front-end layers for e-commerce, I'll probably recommend something like Next.js for React, Gatsby.js, and there are tons of others in the Vue.js ecosystem. And for content management systems to manage the content aspects of your e-commerce business, I would recommend Sanity, Contentful, Graph CMS, Dato CMS. These are really cool content management platforms that you can utilize. And for a headless commerce platform to handle your transactional functionalities, I would obviously recommend Commerce Layer. And I'm not being biased here. I'm saying that because I know that that's what you need, right? And it's possible, if it's possible that your business requirements exceeds what we can offer, then that's fine. But I don't know. I don't know what your requirements pretty much is that would exceed what we have currently, because Commerce Layer pretty much handles most of the transactional functionalities that you need to scale your business, right? And then when it comes to continuous development, I think Chris mentioned something about maintaining your project and how you want to make sure you're keeping your costs down. So when you leverage on the headless commerce architecture, you really don't need to focus so much on DevOps activities, right? You can just, your presentation layers are static pages, right? So you can leverage on something like Netlify or Vercel to deploy your static pages. Every single Git push you make, it's deployed immediately. It's faster, performance is increased compared to not have to work with something like AWS and all that kind of stuff. You might have to do that, depends on your requirements, but then it's much more easier now for you to just leverage on simpler tools and then compose all of them together.
Yeah, and I think those deployment stuff is also very important.
Yeah.
In Netlify and Vercel, if you do something, if you break the website, you can in a few seconds you can revert the previous version that was working very well. So that's also a nice stuff.
Yeah. The fact that it builds on the Git workflow allows you to version control everything. In traditional, you're probably just versioning your code alone, but now you're versioning your code, your content also, because the headless commerce platforms also allow you to use the Git workflow.
If you have some experience in your projects, that how to measure if the migration went well. Of course, you can measure, the revenue that the e-commerce is making, but do you have any tips how to check if our KPIs are met after the migration, and what kind of stuff we need to monitor just after the migration?
All right. So, like you mentioned, the first thing is your KPIs. What KPIs have you set for yourself, first of all? Because as a business, your needs is going to vary across several businesses, right? And that's the first thing. So, whatever measurements you do when you try to migrate, you're trying to check if you're meeting what you've set already, right? And one key aspect for you in terms of checking the customer experience that you have now is using Google Web Vitals, which you've mentioned already. So you can check that out if you have no idea what it means. I think the Google Web Vitals has like 3 core metrics of checking the largest contentful paint, the first input delay, and the cumulative layout shift, right? These are just some standard metrics where you're trying to measure performance, page speed, visual stability, just trying to check and see how your customer experience is, right? So if your customer experience is able to match up, or let's say pass the test of the Google Web Vital, it means you're doing something good, right? And that's the first step. And the next thing now would be for you to check the current metrics you're getting and compare it to your KPIs. Did you set a goal of having, let's say, 10% increase in sales, or did you set the goal of having 10% increase in customers from a particular country, right? So all this thing boils down to your own business requirements, and then you need to analyze this data, and you would be able to see that, yeah, I'm making progress. Because the idea is, if your customers are satisfied, then it's a success. If you're making more revenue, it's a success. So if you're not able to achieve those two things, then something went wrong.
Yeah, I think also when you're releasing a new platform, and you had a previous platform before, and for example the SEO is very important for you, so during the migration you need to make sure that the URL structure is the same, or you did the redirections because you want to increase your organic traffic.
Yeah,
And
very true.
yeah
I agree with you.
so usually when we are releasing a new platform, we are checking the URL structure, the meta tag structure. We are using tools like Ahrefs. So
Yeah,
we are 100% sure that the site health is better on a new platform than in
yeah.
the previous platform.
Yeah, very true. I think that's pretty much the summary of everything. You want to ensure that it's better for every single team. So you need to take note of all the components required in your platform.
So I think we're on a kind of a release moment. You know, when we release our web shop, everything works fine. We check the core web vitals. We increase the revenue, and everyone is happy. Clients are happy. We are happy. So now maybe we can have a look, try to have a look on the future of headless e-commerce. I'm still wondering what kind of things could be improved. Like there are probably still areas for improvement. And do you have something in your mind that could be still improved and we are waiting for it, let's say?
Well, for me, I think it's in terms of the number of sales channels arising, right? So there can be more improvements in terms of enriching customer experience, because for now, pretty much what we see around is just native websites, right? And I think Chris was kind of interested in the QR code sales channel and some other cool stuff, which we don't have a lot of that currently. And that's pretty much the future of headless e-commerce, where we have more enriched customer experiences in terms of videos, editorial content, IoT devices, voice assistants. Imagine how cool it would be for me to just say, "Hey Siri, I want to purchase a book," and then I can, make my payments, and then, so there's still much more untapped benefits that are still there for us to grab in terms of the customer experience. So that's where I see the future, leveraging more on other sales channels.
I think that was the also Amazon idea of having this button next to a specific places. Like for example, when you have this, when your soap is running out, you can just click the button and the soap is already ordered.
Yeah, that's pretty much the idea. That's the idea.
So like totally fractionless buying experience. You don't even have to think about much. You just press the button.
I think that's one of the automation Chris was talking about, right? So we automate the customer experience. I don't even have to worry about the speed of your website. All I have to worry about is just paying for what I want, right?
Yeah. And then you have a kid in the kitchen, just banging on this, ordering like 500 soaps, something like that.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. I think we went through pretty much everything related to headless e-commerce. I think at least the things that could be interesting for business owners. So Bolaji, it was really, really great pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you very much for all your knowledge. Maybe we can still kind of grab you somewhere. Can you say like how people can maybe contact you, or because probably we have a lot of visitors that would like to just make things happen. And I suppose Commerce Layer is a good place. I suppose your knowledge as an expert is also a perfect resource to help people out with stuff at the beginning.
Yeah, sure. I think the starting point I would like for you to check is the comprehensive headless commerce guide, which we have at Commerce Layer, which covers the challenges with traditional e-commerce and how headless commerce solves this problem. It's really comprehensive, and I think if you read that, you pretty much talks about what we we discussed today in more details, right? And you can check out our developers page on commercelayer.io/developers. We have a bunch of resources. We have our data model, which shows you the relationships between several key components in our APIs. We have some our core concepts, which we show you some of the core concepts behind Jamstack and headless commerce that we rely on at Commerce Layer, right? And we are currently working, day by day to improve the resources we have. We're creating more resources for you in terms of trying to migrate to the headless commerce space. So I would like for you to check that out. And please, you can also join our Slack channel, if you have any questions or anything at all. And just like I mentioned earlier, we are experts in the field, right? So if you're having any issues with deciding if this is the best fit for you, or you don't even know what path to follow, you can reach out, request for a demo, and then we can show you how best for you to follow. And that's pretty much it.
Perfect. Obviously, all the links in the comment section.
I'll just leave viewers with this word. It's dangerous to have unsatisfied customers in this modern, competitive, and fast-evolving age, right? So there's a need for new and modern architectures to eliminate factors causing dissatisfaction and improve the business and technical logic in commerce. So you need to continue evaluating your business and look for more ways of improving your customer experience and improving everything, right?
That's true.
That's pretty much it.
That's true. I think you also mentioned that somewhere in the middle of a conversation that it's all the process. It's not like once done works well forever. It's an iteration process, and you have to adapt constantly, I suppose.
Yeah, just like currently now we are that's what we call Web 2.0, and then we are currently having Web 3.0, right? So the age is improving. So probably next year now we're thinking about more around the crypto space and how you can leverage that in e-commerce. So you can't just sit there and say my platform is working and then just be happy. You need to keep up with the changes and try to evolve with it.
Definitely true. 100% agree.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me today.
Okay, thanks very much then, Bolaji. And of course, thanks very much for watching, everyone, and speak to you in the next video.